Women, Life, and Sexuality in the People's Mojahedin Organization of Iran, MEK. The MEK, a Marxist-Islamist revolutionary group founded in the 1960s, initially promoted the liberation of women in Iran but evolved into a highly authoritarian organization. Under the leadership of Massoud and Maryam Rajavi, the MEK's ideology and practices surrounding gender and sexuality became increasingly restrictive, particularly for women. This report explores the MEK's policies on women's roles, emotional and romantic relationships, and sexuality, revealing a stark contrast between its public image of female empowerment and the realities faced by members. Ideological and organizational control. The MEK operates under a strict hierarchical structure that prioritizes loyalty to the leadership above personal relationships. Over time, the group discouraged romantic and familial ties, seeing them as distractions from the collective revolutionary goal. Married couples were forced to separate, and personal emotional attachments were systematically suppressed. The MEK promoted the image of the Mujahid woman, a figure of self-sacrifice and ideological purity, who was expected to forego personal desires in favor of serving the movement. Sexuality and emotional repression. Sexual expression within the MEK was tightly controlled. Romance, as understood in traditional terms, was condemned, and members were encouraged to redirect emotional energy toward loyalty to the Rajavis. This resulted in an environment where love was reframed not as a personal experience, but as an act of ideological devotion. Women, in particular, were expected to suppress their identities and desires, leading to emotional isolation and psychological distress. The forced renunciation of personal relationships had long-lasting effects, with many former members recounting trauma and emotional numbness. Gender dynamics and power. Women in the MEK were presented as the ideal revolutionaries, but their roles were constrained within the organization's rigid ideological framework. Despite the narrative of female empowerment, the organization's policies prevented women from exploring personal identities or forming romantic bonds. The suppression of emotional and romantic connections was not limited to women, it applied to all members, with love and affection directed solely toward the leadership. This created a deeply controlling and emotionally taxing environment, particularly for those with pre-existing emotional attachments before joining the group. Psychological impact and trauma. The emotional cost of MEK's policies on personal relationships was significant. Members, especially women, faced psychological strain from the disconnection from family and romantic partners, and the suppression of their basic human desires. Many former members have spoken about the emotional manipulation they experienced, describing an environment that stifled autonomy and individual expression. The leadership's portrayal of this emotional repression as a form of empowerment created a false narrative, concealing the true psychological toll.
Conclusion. The MEK's claims of gender equality and female empowerment are undermined by its practices, which subjected women to severe emotional and sexual repression. Personal relationships were sacrificed in favor of ideological conformity, and the organization's portrayal of women as empowered revolutionaries is misleading. On International Women's Day, it is crucial to recognize that the fight for women's rights extends to all corners of the world, including within organizations like the MEK. Women deserve the freedom to express themselves, form personal relationships, and live without ideological constraints. The MEK's treatment of women highlights the ongoing struggle for true gender equality and personal autonomy.